7 reasons why the China crisis has finally arrived. Key economic indicators point to exceptionally dire situation of China. Hong Kong, the city never sleeps, witnesses the dwindling of its night economy. Final destination of China's crisis. 7 reasons why the China crisis has finally arrived. Evergrande bankruptcy seems to be the beginning of the economic crisis in China. A prediction about the China crisis was made about 10 years ago by Mr. James Gorey, a China observer. In his article titled 7 Reasons Why the China Crisis Has Finally Arrived, published August 25, Mr. Gorey presented a brief explanation of 7 factors contributing to today's dire situation in China. In 2012, Mr. Gorey was asked by Wiley & Sons to write a book on China's economic structure from my contrarian point of view. At the time, China was the economic marvel of the world. Unlike most observers, Mr. Gorey could see several critical problems with China's political economy model and wrote about them in the China crisis. Mr. Gorey identified 7 key areas, given the basis upon which China operated, that made China's economic model unsustainable. He wasn't the first to see this. Mr. Gordon Chang wrote about it in 2001 in his book, The Coming Collapse of China. Mr. Chang predicted a collapse by 2011, which, of course, did not occur. Instead, China's economic clout and technological prowess continue to grow and develop. That explains why, at that time and for the next 7 years, all kinds of terms were coined to describe China's burgeoning economic status. There was the Beijing miracle, the China model, Chinese state capitalism, and other glowing pronouncements that gave near-unanimous affirmation of China's progress and prognosis for a bright future. In fact, many experts, economists, and observers were predicting that China's state capitalism would be the model for emerging nations around the world because of how fast it had transformed China's economy. It was also predicted that China would soon eclipse the United States in GDP and replace it as the global hegemon. Regarding this last prediction, it's important to acknowledge that it appears as if it's actually coming to fruition. In that regard, however, keep in mind that it's mostly due to U.S. policy failures rather than what China is doing. But even the U.S. leaders' traitorous actions that have aided U.S. adversaries in Beijing can't compete with or prevent the venal nature and deleterious policies that the Chinese government has inflicted upon the Chinese people for many decades. The United States and other Western nations' financial and technological investments have certainly delayed the inevitable but won't stop it. At its root, of course, is the corrosive nature of corruption. For Beijing, corruption in the form of political graft, wholesale theft from the private sector, and abuse of the financial system are the means to maintain control and gain wealth. Obtaining absolute power is the end goal, not a healthy economy. Below is a brief look at how 7 factors erode the social and economic sustainability in China. 1. Excessive overuse of factors of production. When greasing the palms of party officials is the main requirement for a project or policy, waste and fraud are not only unavoidable but lead to inefficiency in leveraging factors of production. In 2013, China used 10 times more factors of production than the United States to produce the same product. Has that improved? It's hard to say, as accurate statistics that reflect poorly on the CCP and Xi Jinping, in particular, are difficult to find. 2. Inefficient allocation of economic goods, activity. This is related to number 1 and is manifested in many ways, such as the theft of profitable companies by the party and turning them into inefficient, debt-ridden zombie state-owned enterprises that destroy value and efficiency. It also transfers wealth from the middle class to the party elite. 3. Stifling innovation in middle class. Lack of freedom of information and the punishment of violators stifles innovation and creativity. Individuals are not allowed to solve problems by themselves. Successful private firms can count on being confiscated by the state at some point. Successful entrepreneurs who speak out about the abuses of the CCP are disappeared and re-educated. This engenders total fear of and reliance upon the state, both of which are what the CCP wants. Crushing individual creativity and innovation stifles a nation's greatest resource, its people. 4. Lack of enforcement of regulations, standards. From critical areas such as food production to pharmaceuticals, corners are cut and quality is compromised. Over the years, this not only negatively impacts the health and safety of the people, but it undercuts the authority and legitimacy of the party. 5. A false economy. Debt-based growth is a cancer on economy. In a capitalist economy, most development is based on market need, which is determined by local prices and market conditions, which then attract capital. Distorted development driven by political expediency isn't development but a waste of time, money, and resources. The Evergrande collapse is a prime example of Beijing's distortion of the economy. China's over-reliance on overdevelopment could be compared to healthy growth in muscle tissue from working out versus that of a cancerous tumor from exposure to toxicity. The former builds up strength and vitality, the latter destroys it. Thus, at some point, even state-owned debt from a state-owned central bank becomes unsustainable. 6. Rampant pollution making China unlivable, causing social unrest. China is one of the worst polluters in the world. For example, it is rapidly losing its arable land to toxicity from mining, manufacturing, and desertification. This is happening because decades of state ownership have led to indifference about what happens to the natural resources, also known as the tragedy of the commons. Losing arable land by either toxicity or desertification is not easily reversible and leads to greater dependence on external food sources to feed itself. Water pollution is another environmental disaster brought about by the Chinese government. When Mr. Gori wrote The China Crisis, about 40% of China's waterways either could not sustain life or were unsafe for human consumption. Today, that number is up to 70%. Moreover, 80 to 90% of its groundwater is undrinkable. China's air pollution is known for being the worst in the world, responsible for millions of premature deaths. State officials claim that air pollution is decreasing in China. Yet, at the same time, China is adding more coal mines for energy production, leading to more pollution, not less. The CCP's inability to address its pollution crisis reveals its economic model's failures, adding to civil unrest rather than social support. 7. Dystopian depression among young generation. When young people lose faith in their nation, they lose faith in their future. One outcome of that pessimism is the decision not to have children. China is not alone in this phenomenon, but like South Korea and Japan, it's a big problem. Without the energy, drive, creativity, and belief of the young, the fall in population and its effects on consumption, taxes, and other economic factors make China's economic future bleak. Unfortunately, its unbalanced social and economic structure will lead to more excessive actions, internally and externally, as economic and social conditions worsen. Key economic indicators point to exceptionally dire situation of China. China's economy has rapidly deteriorated since the end of the second quarter, with the anticipated revenge rebound following the relaxation of pandemic restrictions largely absent. There was only a brief recovery in business activity in the first quarter. Even U.S. President Biden commented this month that China's economy and society are in trouble and noted, "That's not good because when bad folks have problems, they do bad things." Recently, China's Country Garden and Sino-Ocean Group defaulted on their debts, and Zhongji Enterprise Group and Zhongrong Group had a liquidity crunch dubbed China's Lehman moment. Coupled with the severe floods in northern China, deflation, sharp declines in imports and exports trade, the authorities' decision to no longer disclose youth unemployment rates, and unexpected intentions to reduce interest rates to facilitate financing, all reflect an unfavorable overall situation. When considering several key macroeconomic indicators released by China in the past 30 days, the situation indeed appears exceptionally dire. Given China's history of manipulating official data, the situation may be even worse. The official data alone shows that July's Consumer Price Index, CPI, dropped by 0.3% compared to last year, slightly better than the predicted 0.4% decline, while June's CPI figure was flat. The Producer Price Index, PPI, for July fell by 4.4% year-on-year, worse than the forecasted 4.1% decline but better than the 5.4% drop in the previous month. On the trade front, July's exports plummeted 14.5% year-on-year, worse than the predicted 12.5% decline and the 12.4% decrease in June. Meanwhile, imports witnessed a sharp 12.4% year-on-year decline, far exceeding the forecasted 5% drop and the 6.8% decline in June. The trade balance recorded a $80.6 billion surplus. Also, consider the three key economic indicators referred to as the three-engine carriage in the market: industry, fixed investment, and consumption. Industrial output in July increased by 3.7% year-on-year, falling short of the expected 4.4% growth and the 4.4% rise seen in the previous month. Fixed asset investment in July rose 3.4% year-on-year, lower than the expected 3.8% increase and the 3.8% growth recorded in June. Retail sales slowed in July, with a 2.5% year-on-year increase compared to the anticipated 4.5% growth and the 3.1% increase in the previous month. Year-to-date, retail sales increased by 7.3% year-on-year. According to S&P Global and Caixin Media data, the Purchasing Managers' Index, PMI, for the manufacturing sector in July was reported at 49.2, falling below the 50-point expansion contraction line, reflecting a contraction in economic activity, down from 50.5 the previous month. The services sector PMI in July was 54.1, up slightly from 53.9 in June. In July, the average price of new properties in 70 major Chinese cities fell by 0.1% year-on-year. Overseas direct investment in July dropped by 4% year-on-year, with a 2.7% drop reported the previous month. Foreign exchange reserves in July reached $3.204 trillion, up from $3.193 trillion in June. In July, new loans increased by 345.9 billion yuan, $48.32 billion, significantly lower than the market's anticipated 800 billion yuan, $110.60 billion, and a sharp drop from the 3.05 trillion yuan, $420 billion, increase in the previous month. Total social financing increased by 528.2 billion yuan, $73 billion in July, far below the expected 3 trillion yuan, $410 billion, significantly decreasing from the 4.22 trillion yuan, $580 billion, increase in the previous month. Outstanding loans in July increased by 11.1% year-on-year, slightly below the market's expected 11.3% increase. In the first 6 months of this year, China's industrial profits declined by 16.8% year-on-year, with a drop of 18.8% recorded in the first 5 months. Hong Kong, the city never sleeps, witnesses the dwindling of its night economy. Hong Kong was once renowned for its vibrant night economy, nicknamed the city never sleeps. However, 3 years into the pandemic, while various sectors have gradually returned to pre-pandemic norms, Hong Kong's night economy is yet to be revived. The bar industry has reported a 20% decline in business compared to the pandemic period, trailing behind other dining establishments. Additionally, changes in spending patterns among mainland Chinese tourists, a decrease in overnight visitors, and increased competition from neighboring regions have all contributed to the lackluster state of Hong Kong's night economy. The term night economy refers to economic activities that primarily involve residents and tourists and occur between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. the next day, covering a wide range of businesses such as dining, bar entertainment, shopping, fitness, movies, concerts, various cultural and entertainment activities, night market vendors, and street performances. This colorful nightlife, known as the light economy, symbolizes vitality and fashion in major cities and is a significant tourist attraction. Nearly half of the spending in many big cities takes place at night, and it is believed that the rate is even higher in Macau. Facing tough competition in a zero-sum game. Many cities in Asia have developed a night economy, and many areas have gone to great lengths to attract tourists back to their cities after the quarantine. Taipei, for example, has had a night market economy for many years. Still, the Taipei city government is looking to transform this kind of traditional eating, drinking, and entertainment venue into an innovative platform to showcase culture and art. Even mainland cities are opening roadside stalls to boost consumption after the pandemic. Since September, Shenzhen City has been revitalizing its night market by designating places for stalls to operate based on the principles of convenience to the public, reasonable layout, and orderly supervision. Faced with fierce competition from neighboring regions, despite the Hong Kong government emphasizing that private consumption and service trade are the two locomotives driving growth in the latter half of this year, personal consumption has slowed down, dropping from a 13% growth rate in the first quarter to 8.5% in the second quarter. Indeed, policies during the pandemic have changed the habits of Hong Kong residents, leading them to reduce nighttime outings and spending. Furthermore, with the summer holiday season in full swing, many residents are keen on overseas travel to destinations like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, and South Korea, further dampening Hong Kong's night economy. Even when mainland Chinese tourists visit Hong Kong, the lack of innovative nighttime attractions beyond the traditional highlights like a symphony of lights and Tsim Sha Tsui and the Temple Street night market means tourists are more inclined to visit for the day and return home, avoiding overnight stays. However, when overnight stays are discouraged, it directly reduces their opportunities to spend money in Hong Kong, further hurting the city's night economy. Shops closing early, streets deserted. Once bustling areas, such as the tourist districts of Causeway Bay and Mong Kok, now see most stores closing by 8 p.m., with restaurants ceasing to take orders as early as 9:30 p.m. Streets become quiet by 10 p.m., with businesses rushing to close early due to a dwindling number of customers. With fewer customers, shop owners struggle with high rents and labor costs, leading to early closures and reduced staff shifts, creating a vicious cycle. In addition, Hong Kong currently lacks large-scale cultural and entertainment events. Even international sensations such as Taylor Swift have opted to hold their world tour concerts in other Asian cities such as Japan and Singapore, leaving Hong Kong, known as the event capital, out of their tour destinations, resulting in potential losses of millions of dollars. While some suggest resurrecting the night bazaar to attract tourists, it is worth noting that Hong Kong attempted to reopen the Sheung Wan Gala Point in September 2002, with over 300 stalls. However, it eventually dwindled to just over 20 stalls within a year due to poor foot traffic and operational issues. At that time, then Legislative Council member Lee Chuk-yen pointed out that the government's efforts to stimulate the local economy had a promising start but lacked follow-through, indicating that revitalizing the development of the night economy requires more than simply repeating past strategies. An internal social factor challenging the revival of the night economy is the continuous outflow of residents. Between 2020 and 2022, Hong Kong lost a cumulative population of 187,300 people, and the recently announced unexpected return of the mobile population has not helped the city's fortunes. Among the population declines over these years, the 20 to 24 age group, known for its nightlife preferences, experienced the most significant decline. A decade ago, the population aged 15 to 39 exceeded 2.5 million, but the latest figures, as of June this year, have fallen to less than 2.1 million, a drop of more than 400,000. From another perspective, as Hong Kong's population ages, the number of residents aged 65 and above is estimated to increase from 1.45 million in the past year to 2.74 million in 2046, raising concerns about the development of the night economy. London, an example of a successful night economy. The night economy has immense potential with appropriate planning and development. According to data from the UK's Nighttime Economy Report 2023, the night economy created over 1.66 million nighttime job positions in 2011, which rose to 1.95 million by 2019. Although it contracted by 8% at one point during the pandemic, it has now already nearly fully recovered. Even during the challenging year of 2021, the UK's night economy remained substantial, with an overall scale of approximately £93.7 billion, about $119.5 billion US dollars, accounting for about 4.1% of the country's GDP, down from 5.1% in 2019. According to Ernst & Young's research report, the financial centre of London alone contributes nearly 40% of the UK's night economy revenue. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.